Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Tech Report Podcast, episode 188. I'm your host, Luke McCready, and I'm here with our stupendous panel of Scott Wasson, Jeff Campman, and Ben Funk. This is the official podcast of the Tech Report at techreport.com, the number one place for news and reviews in the computer hardware world. The number one place for news and reviews in the computer hardware world. If you're not listening live, be sure to catch us next time in our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/thetechreport.
Thanks, Luke. And,
Woo-hoo.
you know, we do have four guys here, and I'm going to say hi to everybody. Hey, Ben.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
I think the pattern in your wall behind you was made to defeat block-based compression schemes.
Yeah, it's a like sponges, with white and gray and black. It's cool.
If the camera moves, then we will go completely offline, because that is amazing. And then Jeff Campman, our managing editor.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Jeff. You got, like, the webcam issues. Dude, you need a new webcam.
I know.
All right.
I'll send you mine.
I swear, this is the last time I will use this one.
And now we're going to switch to Infinity View. Oh, man.
Oh, geez.
Excellent.
That is awesome. We can't keep doing that. That's just too much. But, but every once in a while, if things get slow on the show, I'm popping back over to Infinity View. But what's going on here is we normally would have a four-way camera setup, but the show is starting late and it's all messed up because there's some incompatibility between the latest version of XSplit and Skype, which we normally use for our video calling. So I've got Google Hangouts running, but I can only show one camera at a time on Hangouts because apparently that's what it lets you do. And so we're going to try and do the show. We'll all participate. And I'm going to try to click around to everybody's faces. So, like, if Ben's got, like, he's itching his ear, I'll switch over so that we see that. And
That was perfect.
and if it gets boring, then we'll go to Infinity View.
Are we keeping all this tomfoolery in the audio version? Just curious.
Yeah.
Well, that's up to you, right? You're the producer of that. So
Really? I have the power.
yeah, that's terrifying, isn't it? But use it wisely, please.
Okay.
Anyway, but yeah, we're gonna try and do this anyhow. So I think what we want to do tonight, because I'm just tired and whatever, is let's maybe start with some Q&A and just take this a little more informally than usual, and see where it leads us. So, Luke, do we have some reader questions?
We do have some reader questions. First one, Terminal Recluse says, did Damage get a new iPad Mini 4?
So this is like, what did you buy? Yeah, I
sure.
tweeted about this. I got an iPad Mini 4, and it's nice. And then I was playing with it, and then like all the people in my Fallout 4 vault or Fallout Shelter vault died, and now I don't know if I need it anymore. But no, it's neat. I'm used to Android 8-inch tablets and 7-inch. I've had several of those, and I've really kind of been looking at the iPad Mini. I like the aspect ratio better. I think iOS has been in a good place, and Android has been kind of and so when they came out with the Mini 4, and it was like basically just like an iPhone 6, only bigger, I was like, yeah, I'm going to get that. And so it's funny because I have an iPhone 6 Plus that I use most of the time, and then I'll switch to the like what is it, like three of them stacked on top of each other. Like the Mini 4 is not much larger than a few iPhones, but that's what I want, so that's what I got.
Did you mention Fallout Shelter?
Yes.
You play.
I did, and then all my people died, and now I don't want to run that anymore.
Those death claws. Those death claws are vicious.
So I didn't get real far, and so I don't know that I know all this stuff. I would sent one or two people to Wasteland. It was mostly just managing resources. So.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, it consumed my life for a week and a half, and now I'm back to humanity.
Yeah, see, I haven't gotten that far, and I think I'm not gonna. But anyway, well, let's move on. I think we got some more questions. So,
all right. So you do have the iPad Mini 4. Any more glorious details you want to share?
No, I might do a review later, but I might not, because every once in a while it's nice to buy something tech and not have that obligation. In my life as a guy who reviews stuff, so we'll see.
Ambiguous. Perfect. All right. Next question from Did Damage get Google Fiber?
I got Google Fiber in my yard, but not like the internet bits moving around. So they came out the other day and they dug all across the yard and they put the cable in the ground, and then they have a box that runs up the side of the house, and there's like just the cable sitting there in a loop, coiled up on the side of the house. And as far as I know, Google has said that the install window for me is winter, so months from now, and it's just hanging out there. So I kind of it's hard to see.
Time to learn how to terminate fiber, Scott.
Yeah, that's I can do that, right? I mean, I don't think it's going to be provisioned, but man, I don't know. I'm ready. Like, anyway.
I was thinking that wait doesn't sound so bad here in Minnesota. I'm thinking it's winter already.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Is it getting snow
October
yet?
1st.
Yeah.
No, we probably got another month.
Okay.
So it's near enough to touch, near enough to smell, but you can't use it yet.
All right. So the next question.
Who on the TR staff has an iPhone 6S?
The window switches to Campman.
Yep, that's me.
So did you get the
It's right here.
TSMC or the Samsung chip?
I got the 6S Plus, and those apparently have the I think it's which one's the bigger one? It's the TSMC ones, right? And they've said the ones they peeled apart at Chipworks, the TSMC ones are going into the, or it was in the 1.6 Plus they tore apart to determine that. So it's probably a TSMC chip, but who knows? I'm not tearing mine apart for that purpose.
Please?
So what did you upgrade from?
I had an iPhone 5.
Wow. That's a pretty big upgrade. You waited a long time.
Yeah.
Did you have the 5 from the beginning of the cycle for the 5?
No, I think I got it a year after it was released. I've had it for 2 years now. I forget when exactly they released it, but it was getting up there in years. Like iOS 9, it just started getting kind of like, I don't care what they said about performance improvements. It was starting to get laggy and unpleasant. And
oh, really? See, I had a 5 before I upgraded to the 6 Plus, and I never had a performance issue with it, really. Like, I guess maybe early on with the 8, but they got that figured out.
Yeah, like Netflix took 30 seconds or something to load on the 5, and it's like instant on the 6 Plus S, whatever. So I don't know exactly what was wrong with it, but it was a huge performance improvement.
And so are you learning to double click? I mean right click, 3D touch, or it's right click, right? I mean
it's kind of what it is. And the moment I got it, I tried to do that to every app on the phone. And
only the Apple ones did anything, right?
Yeah, only the Apple ones really do anything right now. But I could see utility with it. If you just want to jump to something real quick in an app, that will be handy. And then like being able to preview a link on a website by pressing down on it, it's kind of nice. And then you can just press harder, it pops open. And
what's the advantage over long press, which has been around since the original iPhone? Is it just that there's more support, or is it faster, or does it feel like, is there haptic feedback? Does it feel?
Yeah,
like
they actually took the the vibrating thingy, they call it the Taptic engine from the Apple Watch, and they adapted it to the iPhone. And so there's this little haptic click, or this little, there's like a little pop if you just press a little bit, and then there's a big one if you pop like the into the full view, I guess. They call it peek and pop. It's the lighter and the heavier press. So, but you don't have to wait for it like a long press. You can just like do it. Okay. There's not this duration.
Well,
so
all right,
it's a thing that's waiting for developers to take advantage of it, basically. But I'm glad to have it. So,
and otherwise, good overall, or
yeah, we'll probably talk about this a little bit, but like the A9 chip is incredible. I think the performance improvements are incredible.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question, Luke.
All right. Any update on the R9 Nano review?
I finished the GTX 950 review finally, so the Nano review is ostensibly next, but I have another project too. Plus, I'll be busy next week, and so. I don't know, dude. You take a while.
Okay.
And sorry, but that's just reality right now. And I'm not trying to drag it out. I just had things to do, and I'm trying to do them in order. And have had some trouble because I work too much for like most of 2015. I didn't have a weekend off, and I had to stop doing that to myself. And that means it takes longer when you're trying to do a review like we do. If you only work 8 hours a day and then you stop and then you don't work the weekends, then it takes a long time to do some of this stuff. And I'm, as you might imagine, a little bit burnt out too. So we'll see. Hopefully soon. I've got all the pieces and parts here, and it's really a matter of doing all the testing, assembling all the data and all that. But I can't do it till week after this next one. Really, I can start tomorrow, but then I'm off next week. So off to other places, not really off anyway. Okay. Let's talk about this. We've got a couple of questions about it, and we have this story, and we already kind of alluded to this. So Apple is dual sourcing the A9 chips. Jeff, you wrote this.
Yep.
And this is a ChipWorks thing that figured this out. What's going on?
So ChipWorks, for the unfamiliar, I guess, is a research company thing. They, I guess, do kind of industrial intelligence. They tear apart integrated circuits to figure out what makes them tick. And I guess they got like iPhone 6s in to tear apart. And when they took the lids off the A9 SoCs, they found two different versions of the chip. And one is, I guess they found model number somewhere. I don't know if it was on the silicon or something, but one of them is 96 square millimeters in die area. And they think that one's made by Samsung. And then there's this other one made by TSMC, and it's 104.5 square millimeters.
Yeah. So presumably this is 14 nanometer FinFET at
yeah,
Samsung,
that's what
and
people
16 nanometer FinFET at TSMC. And nanometer labels are marketing, but basically Samsung's is more compact.
Right.
It's presumably the same chip being implemented on two different processes, which is an expensive thing to do. But when you're Apple, you have all the money.
Yeah,
they need all the supply.
Right, and that's what they alluded to. What ChipWorks thinks is happening is it's. I don't think either foundry, maybe it's not even a half and half thing, but one foundry is not able to provide as many chips. So
or not enough. Presumably, no single foundry was able to provide enough. Also, the risk is less here if there's a problem with supply for any reason. Then they've got somebody else they can go to. So, yeah, it's interesting, and the A9 chip too is interesting. We've seen some preliminary numbers on performance on this thing, and it's starting to raise some eyebrows.
Yeah, I've run some myself. Was the first thing I did actually. But
so we have two questions about the A9. Luke, you want to
from
read these for
Drago
us?
SMP. Question about the Apple A9 system on a chip. What's your opinion on the challenges involved in double sourcing the chip to TSMC and Samsung? Should we expect very similar performance or performance per watt from the two chips?
So the reality is that every chip process like this is a little different. And even though they're the same class of solutions, probably the power efficiency and switching speed offered by what TSMC provides and what Samsung provides, they're probably a little bit different. It's possible that one of these two chips might do a better job at running at higher speeds at lower voltages than the other, and that therefore you could get a little bit of extra goodness out of, say, the Samsung compared to the TSMC or vice versa. It's also possible that Apple will kind of equalize things a little bit, or they could do what they're doing apparently with the 6S Plus, where they put TSMC in that. They could split it. But Jeff, do they put TSMC and Samsung into the main 6 body?
I don't know that
6S?
anybody has dealt with a large enough sample size to say yet.
I mean, all you need is two 6S's that have two different chips.
Yeah. And I guess it's probably a bit of a lottery to get there.
But they do have they seen two different chips in the 6S body? Or
Not that I'm
aware of.
aware
One in the 6S Plus was different from the one in the 6S.
Yeah, that was That was the situation Chipworks came up with.
I didn't get that clearly from reading their reports. So I don't know whether they're offering the same body with two different chips. So that's another question. Because right now, like when we reviewed the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, there's a slight performance difference between those two. And it wasn't always in favor of the bigger phone. Actually, there are a little bit more aggressive specs on some on the 6. So, it's not entirely clear what's faster just by the label. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't think that this is something that Apple's going to make a big deal about. Consumers might make a big deal about it. Honestly, I don't expect this to be a difference. Like, it could be measurable, but I don't think it'd be a big difference overall. Like, there might be a test or a directed thing where you could get a 10 or 15% performance difference at the outside, but I doubt that's a general thing. It's probably much less generally.
I feel like it would be a lot. I mean, because they don't present two sets of performance figures.
No.
Obviously. So, like, any major disparity would be a huge, cause an enormous outcry.
Right. Well, and this is low power design with relatively conservative clock speeds and all of that. So I doubt there are major differences in that regard. So I think, Luke, there was a related question.
Before we jump to the next question, several people in the chat are saying that your microphone volume is very low, Scott. Is there anything we can do about that?
I can turn it up there.
Okay.
That's all I can do. Oh, that's not true. I could turn it up more when the mic came.
It sounds a little better.
Geez, we are cursed tonight with.
Yeah.
I'm filming my end from on top of an Indian burial ground. I hope that's all right.
All right, is this too much? Is the mic too hot?
That's a little too much, yeah.
Ben, how's your volume? Jump in here.
How's that? Oh, his is going to change.
I'm fine. I'm keeping an eye on mine.
All right.
Not going anywhere.
Change. How's mine now?
Hopefully people in the chat can chime in immediately how our volume is, so we can jump back to the show.
Forget that. Just
all right.
Go.
We're rolling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Drago SMP does have one more question.
Sure.
Any idea why GlobalFoundries can't manage to launch their Samsung licensed 14-nanometer FinFET? With Apple and Samsung gobbling Samsung's foundry capacity, it seems to be a market for GlobalFoundries 14 nanometers, not only AMD. It occurs to me that the Dresden factories haven't put out a decent process on time at all since the 90 nanometer, which was even superior to Intel's.
I don't know the exact status of. So what happened with GlobalFoundries is they promised they were doing 14 nanometers, various forms for a long time. They had their own process, and basically they then came out and licensed Samsung's. And Samsung got to 14 nanometer FinFETs before the rest of the industry, except for Intel, who was there by themselves first at 22. And they're kind of on a different track. And so the idea in part was that if GlobalFoundries was a big foundry company, part of them is, the former AMD manufacturing capacity. Part of them is other things that they purchased. But the idea was that they could license the Samsung process, implement it, and then potentially Samsung's customers could come to GlobalFoundries for a second source for chips that were built on the same process. They would have a cross-compatibility so they could port between factories and between companies. I don't know whether they're shipping 14-nanometer FinFET chips. It sounds like that he's thinking they're not. I haven't heard significant news, like nobody's waved a flag and said, we're doing it at GloFo. The thing about GlobalFoundries that's funny is, they have customers, and their customers don't always want the world to know what's happening. And so they don't always say, like, okay, this is what we're shipping now. We are shipping 14 nanometer chips, and here's who we're shipping them with. And so when I ask them questions about this stuff, they're always kind of cagey about what's happening. But you can imagine that making the transition to 14 nanometers and doing FinFETs with the 3D transistor structure is not easy. And doing it according to Samsung's recipe, which is different from the way that GlobalFoundries has made chips, is probably even more challenging. So doing volume production in it when Samsung hasn't really been doing it for more than 6 months is hard. So it's not a shock that they're having trouble. They've struggled with their process transitions for a while. And I think everybody in the industry has to some degree, but they've done so maybe more than everybody else. But I would say I don't think it's Dresden. I think that the lead processes now are being developed at the New York fab instead. So in Saratoga. So I think that would be where they would be doing that work right now. Not that I think they were going to use older processes in Dresden. Could be wrong about that, but that's my understanding.
Subject writes, how about those A9 performance numbers?
So, yeah. Jeff, you've got one.
I've got them right here. Do we want to talk about some?
Well, okay.
I mean,
you gonna Geekbench us? All we got is Geekbench.
All we have is Geek. Well, I've got Geekbench. I have like GLBench. I think as the open GL benchmark. So like I think the most startling number, so the iPhone 6 when we tested it had a Geekbench overall single core score of 1629. The A9 on the 6S Plus has a 2541 single core score. So
that's a lot.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before, that when they introduced these things, they said, hey, these things are faster than 70% of the mobile PCs that shipped last year. Something like that. Like they gave us a number like that about.
Yeah, for the iPad Pro, yes. Yeah. For the A9X.
Well, I think they said a similar thing about the A9 when they did the iPhone. There were two sets of claims, and they were.
Yeah, it's I think it was 40% more CPU performance and 90 graphics or something
compared to the iPhone 6.
Yeah, to the A8.
But yeah, I think both the phone and the iPad, they gave us comparisons to mobile PCs. And anyway, the idea was basically that their new chip is faster than some portion of the Intel chips shipping in mobile PCs, presumably. And now we're seeing numbers that are what? These are potentially faster than the Core M Broadwell chip in the MacBook. Yeah. And again, it's Geekbench, which maybe isn't the best.
Yeah, and well, yeah, but mobile benchmarking is such a pain.
It is. It's not. The tools aren't great, but the truth is that what we're seeing is a big performance increase from one generation to the next out of Apple on the hardest thing, which is single-threaded performance, where they were already in the lead, and they seem to be in some cases catching up to Intel products that have been the IPC plus clock speed or times clock speed winner forever, and they are doing it in a lower power envelope, and it's all very impressive is what it comes down to, I think. And so is it really faster than Intel all around? I think that's a really tough one, but as
I don't think it's that good.
They were already way ahead of most of the rest of the phone guys and tablet guys, and especially phone. And now they're looking to be even further ahead. And the graphics side of it too, it looks like a similar increase in performance.
Yeah, because so in our tests with the GFX bench, the Manhattan 1080p test, the iPhone 6 scored 19.3 frames per second. The 6S Plus did 39.3, which actually even beats the Shield tablet.
Right.
Wow.
So they're doubling up.
Catch the Shield. It didn't catch the Shield console, but that's
that's a completely different.
Yeah, but
when you get to plug into a wall and have a big metal heatsink, then
right. What I'm saying, my point is that if anybody needs to be worried, it's NVIDIA.
Right.
Because if they wanted to do that in an Apple TV, they could have.
Right. Well, yeah. And in fact, it's just a question of when they will, I guess, right, if they choose to. But Apple is, that puts Apple in a really great place. And they are spending money, spending engineering resources to get better from one generation to the next in some impressive ways. And I guess we have some other hints about things. The guys at Anantech said that it's got NVMe storage.
Yes, that was another weird thing I noticed, because like I went and ran some of the benches. Like, this is ancient software now, but like the storage bench and the testing tool you used on this thing, like it was, I forget which one worked. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, it was like an absurdly high number, and so yeah, but I was wondering why that was, and then I think it was Anantech that has their own like iOS app that tests storage performance, and they concluded that it's NVMe.
Yeah. Well, so. and if you remember when we reviewed the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, what we found was that there was a funny difference between we had a 128 gig 6 and a 64 gig 6 Plus, and there was a performance difference between the two that didn't make a lot of sense, except for when you started thinking about, okay, these things are different sizes, and we're testing certain like I/O patterns that go so far into the read or write so much data. And my conclusion, based on poking around with these things, was the reason that there was a difference there is because the phones were using some portion of their triple level cell NAND as single level cell, and using that as a sort of cache type area where they could write to quickly and mitigate. Basically, you write quickly, and then you mitigate wear by writing to SLC area in front of your TLC larger pool of storage. And doing SLC with the TLC backing is what a lot of really sophisticated desktop storage controllers do. Apple is doing it in the 6.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like not.
Yeah.
Like pretty clearly not. And some of these devices are very much like eMMC class storage and stuff like that. And apparently they've made a big leap from the 6 to the 6S.
Yeah.
With this NVMe.
Yeah. So just for some perspective on that, like the storage write test, the passmark test we did, it was like 54 megs a second for writes. It's 215 megs now,
which is nice.
Yeah, and then
you think about features like their little animated picture deal and
right.
things like that. This is why you can add this on a phone like that. I mean, you can do that almost effortlessly when you have that much more write bandwidth, right?
Right.
So, are there other things you want to share with us about that chip?
I'm abusing the camera in ways that are probably not justified by this class of device to figure out where its limitations are, but that's amusing to me and probably meaningless to everybody else. So we won't go into it. Oh yeah.
Anyway, okay. Well, I think that the thing is that if you're a chip guy or CPU guy, then this is a pretty exciting thing that's happening here.
Yeah.
Apple looks like it is moving into a potentially a leadership position, not just for like its competition, but also potentially compared to Intel.
Yeah, someone says it needs more RAM, and they did add more RAM in the 6S as 2 gigs. So
yeah,
I just want to point that out.
So how is multitasking? Does it reload apps much?
I mean, it never really bothered me that much on the 5. I don't notice it.
You don't.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, probably not. But like, I don't notice it like stuff reloading as much anymore. Like, and like just the CPU performance, the raw CPU performance. Even when stuff does have to go and reload, it's just a whole lot faster. So, yeah. But
I mean, to some extent, you get over the problem with apps being ejected and having to load when your CPU is 3 times as fast on a single thread, or maybe, yeah, that's what we're talking about now. And then your storage is so much faster that you can start things up quickly. But the other thing is, going from a gig to 2 gigs on iOS is a big deal because Apple has enforced efficiency by keeping the RAM amounts low. So I don't think if you're a specs watcher and you're looking at Android and you're comparing a 3 or 4 gig phone to a 2 gig iPhone, that you can say, oh, well, the Android phone is better on RAM because it has more here.
Yeah.
I think that there's a difference between how the ecosystem and the apps and the OS, on the iPhone side use RAM compared to what happens in the Android. I think it's more efficient.
Completely different software stacks. Much more. Just Java on Android is garbage collected and stuff. That has more memory overhead. iOS doesn't do that, so they can get away with less, kind of. That's one of the things, but it's a major part of it.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad that they doubled the RAM. I think that was something they needed to do. Maybe there are going to be people out there crying for more after they used them for a while, but I think that they did a good thing, and that this is gravy too, in the sense that they fit the OS and everything and the applications into 1 gig. When you double that, you've got a lot more free space,
right?
And so it's a nice thing. It's not quite the same as just twice the free space. It's actually a lot more free space for application space, I guess you would call it. So that's good. Anyway, I'm still playing around with the iPad Mini 4, which I believe also has 2 gigs, but I haven't really got a feel for how it improves multitasking compared to the iPhone 6 Plus. For some reason, I've been using it for a while, but I just need to, do some side-by-side comparisons or something. Anyway.
You need to load a lot of Safari tabs and then start switching between them and see, does the phone reload where the tablet doesn't, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, and you can do it with other apps. There's like a set of things that I wanted. Like if I'm watching football on Sunday afternoon, I got fantasy football apps. I'm switching between them, and the ESPN app to see if the Royals are playing. And I'll sit around and switch between 3 or 4 or 5 different things regularly. I need to do that on both of those devices and see what it looks like. It's not hard to do, but I just haven't really done it. Okay, let's turn here. I think we probably talked enough Apple. Let's turn and talk about AMD.
The other A company.
Well, we have a lot of questions about them, and so I think that, let's see.
First question I've got here.
Yeah, you want to hit us with the first one?
Yeah, asks, what is going on with AMD? Layoffs, a failed financial backer, and rumors of product delays make things look very bleak.
And then Terminal Recluse
comments on a life without AMD. Stock price down to sub $2. And Silver Lake Partners looking to buy up 25%.
So there's been some news.
Yes, there has.
And Jeff, you wrote up the Silver Lake thing. This Silver Lake is what, like a private equity firm?
Correct. That's yes.
So they buy companies and turn them around and then sell their.
They try to unlock value for investors, is what they do.
Okay. And so what happened with them and AMD?
So Bloomberg got a hot tip from one of its sources that Silver Lake and AMD were in talks where AMD would sell 25% of itself to Silver Lake because they need capital, it seems like. Those talks did not work out because they couldn't come to terms about the price they were going to pay, for that 25% stake, and they couldn't come to a conclusion about what the company's strategic direction was going to be after they acquired that stake.
So too many strings attached for AMD, or at least not a good match.
Yeah.
And so it didn't happen, but we know that they're actively looking for investors.
Right. Because their business is, no mincing words. It's just not good. And like Bloomberg, they talked to analysts and said, or got a response. Their AMD is expected to report a 28% drop in revenues versus last year, and their shares are down 38% for the year to date, and so that's pretty ugly too. So
and we know that they've gone from around 40% of the desktop GPU, like discrete market share, to under 20.
Yeah, it's around 20.
And so the GPU side, which had been helping kind of pull things along, has seen a decline, which is, frankly, what's happened is NVIDIA's launched a top-to-bottom range of Maxwell chips, and AMD hasn't really been able to respond with they're still shipping GCN stuff. They freshened up a couple chips, and they're not bad, but it's not a new architecture, it's tweaked, but it's not a new architecture, and they still have segments where they're just rolling things out that are not as competitive as you'd like, or price performance is good, power consumption is 100 plus watts more on like the R9 390X. I mean, you can look at that and say it's okay until you look at the power numbers. And at some point you start paying for that, or for cuts in software engineering for your drivers or whatever is going on there. And then on the CPU side, look, they're still shipping FX as their high-end platform.
Like Intel got a lead with the Conroe core, was it? And the Core 2 Duo, and then they just never came out with anything competitive to respond to that.
Well, like when we reviewed Skylake, the FX8350, which is the fastest FX processor, was slower than the Core i7-2600K, which was the original Sandy Bridge, which we went back and tested. And then Intel has done 10-15% a year every year since then.
Right.
And that's the high end. On the mid range, it's been a little weird. They did the Carrizo refresh of their mainstream quad core APU, but they didn't do a desktop version of it. Which I maybe the thinking was, well, Intel's not doing that for real with Broadwell. I don't know, but it turned. I think part of it was just they were tuning for low power too, but they're then left with like a few notebook design wins they can get out of Carrizo, which that has been great because Intel's really turning the screws in mobile, and they've got no server market share to speak of with Opteron, and so really the company has to remain competitive in graphics, which I think they're trying to do.
Right.
They've got challenges and they've lost market share, and then find a way to get Zen finished, which is a new core. And
right.
We're still looking at 2016, but late 2016?
Yes, supposed to start sampling in late 2016. I think they said they expect the first full year of revenue from the part to be 2017.
And so the other news that came out today is this. And so this is just layoffs, right?
Right. It's just layoffs, stuff that's not really relevant to like their technology products. They're laying off 5% of their workforce. They're doing some stuff with their real estate, and I guess they're outsourcing some IT and software development stuff.
And this is another round of cuts, and they've had several. They've had quite a few. I think the thing that I'll say about this is, they did I think they did a 15% cut, and then they did a couple rounds that were 5 or 10%. I mean, it's been some number of years that they've been reducing staff. Another 5% reduction, frankly, is not what some of those other ones were, because when they did some of the other 10%, 5%, 15% reductions, they were a bigger company than they are now.
Right.
And so the percentage, of people, a 5% cut of workforce now is not what it would have been 3, 4, or 5 years ago. So that's I guess we keep it in perspective in that way.
Right.
And it's not even a ton of savings, actually, it looks
like. It's under 100 million.
Yeah. For the total thing.
For the total.
It's not much savings to start because they're paying severance.
Right.
And good for them for that. And then I think the savings kicks in another year.
Yeah, next financial year.
And it's about $58 million over fiscal 2016.
Right.
So it's a real cut. I mean, it's real money.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess the question is how much of this is fat and how much of it's muscle.
Right.
And I don't know how you characterize that, but they clearly had to reduce staff a lot of times, and we know that they've lost some capability in things like graphics driver development through that time.
Yeah, and to be clear, not going over this because we were knocking them. This is not celebratory. This is really grim.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
dude,
it's
this is a
awful.
layoff
Yeah.
of people in the industry. This is terrible. And, it's been rough for AMD. I think everyone is asking the questions they're asking. The reason this is a subject that people want to talk about is people realize that this is bad, and that I think the industry is healthier when you have competition.
Absolutely.
And this is tough because we kind of had twin duopolies for a long time, with CPU side being Intel versus AMD, graphics side being NVIDIA versus ATI, and then NVIDIA versus AMD. And if AMD is not healthy, then you lose competition in the two key semiconductor segments of the PC market, where the most innovation happens, where those money goes into development, that most determine the performance, of a PC, that are most important for gaming systems and the advances that we want to see there, and all the exciting stuff that's happening in PC gaming and virtual reality coming up, and all this, depends on those types of chips getting better and innovating and investment happening. And I don't care what anybody says. If you don't have competition, then you don't get investment. In fact, I think Intel soft pedaling on Broadwell on the desktop is a direct result of not having that competition, and Intel not giving us more aggressive push in desktop power envelopes for CPU performance improvements is a direct result of not having competition. They've improved things, but not to the degree that they probably would have if there were legitimate performance competition. So, this is bad. And one thing I'll say is I've had some people from we had a thing recently with AMD not providing us the R9 Nano to review,
Right.
And one of the AMD VPs saying some really unfair things about us, and it was not good, right? It was not nice.
No.
And I tried to defend my publication art, and not do it in a way that damaged that company, because I other than just telling people what they did. But I had people from Intel contact me and say, "Hey, go easy on them. Like, they're fragile right now. Like, worried about their fate. Like it was like I was going to push them over the edge because I told people what they did. But I think there's a real concern throughout the industry for their welfare, even amongst their competitors. And I think anybody you talk to, the microphones are off. Doesn't matter who they work for. They're going to worry about it, unless they're certain people at NVIDIA who just don't care. There are definitely those folks. I've talked to some of them, but I think generally there's a real concern.
Well, we'll hope that they, because what's between now and Zen? It's like I think there's hints and rumors of a next generation graphics processor, maybe. Something
well, it appears so. I mean, the rumor is that they had a architecture refresh coming, and when the 20 nanometer process didn't work out, they had to go back and sort of reuse GCN. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think that the hope is that they've got something new. And honestly, I think they've got to at least significantly refresh the front end of anything GCN based to scale it up. And presumably, if they're going to go to FinFETs, then they're going to have more density. They're going to scale up, right? That's take advantage of HBM2, all of the things that you'd want to see happen. I think they're working on that. I hope they're working on that for their sake, for everybody's sake. And that should be, 2016 products. Heck, we're talking about Pascal, like maybe being in testing, which is the NVIDIA next gen. Presumably FinFET-based part. If Apple doesn't suck up all that FinFET capacity at everybody's fabs, then we should get some new GPUs soon.
We're not going to see another 28 nanometer graphics chip from AMD, are we?
I don't know the answer to that for certain, but if I were betting, I would bet no. I would bet everything from here on out finally makes the transition to a new process.
One would hope.
Yeah.
But we're still banking HBM2 for whatever they come out with next, right?
Well, HBM is already here, and HBM2 is a incremental refinement that is nice because they're stacking more chips and they're going to have more density, more bandwidth, and more capacity, because that's the reason the Fury is limited to 4 gigs, which is a little tight. Yeah, my expectation
Still more than the
is,
iPhone.
Huh?
Still more than the iPhone.
Yeah, well, it's a different class of thing.
I know. Chill.
But yeah, I think that HBM2 is the thing. I also don't know about HBM2 being the only thing. My sense is that it's expensive, and they're clearly, like, it appears the Fury and Fury X supplies have been limited by maybe if it's not a chip supply issue on the GPU side, it looks like it may be on the memory side. And so I would expect at least like low-end parts to ship with some with GDDR5 next year.
Well, great. Looks like Google has a couple new phones out. Jeff, you want to tell us about the 6P, the Nexus 6P?
Yeah, Google released a raft of products this week. And the flagship device, I guess, for the Nexus lineup and for Android 6.0 is this thing called the Nexus 6P. So it's a phone built by Huawei, which is a Chinese manufacturer. I probably butchered that name, but I gave it my best. So, the vision, of course, of Nexus devices is that, this is how Android is supposed to be experienced. This is the hardware that it's supposed to be paired with, the kind of hardware. It's a nice phone. It looks like, this is the first all metal Nexus device, I think Google said. It's got a quad HD screen or 2560 by 1440 screens, 5.7 inches. They went and talked to Sony and got one of their camera modules. It's got really big photo sites or pixels, which is supposed to make it better at gathering light in low light conditions. It's got a fingerprint sensor, which looks, like they ripped an iPhone home button off and stuck it on the back of the device. But, it's supposed to be the first fingerprint sensor that's fully capable of unlocking a lot of features in Android 6.0 that rely on it. So it's a nice device, it seems like, but...
So this is, I guess Google did this explosion of everything press conference this week. And we got a number of things. We got 2 new phones and a whole bunch of info about Android Marshmallow and all this stuff. But it looks like this isn't, the 6P isn't exactly a competitor for the new iPhones in the sense it's a lower end product.
But certainly priced for less.
So 32 gig 6P is $499.
Right.
And 128 gig is $649. So that's quite a bit cheaper. But it does look nice. They showed some demos of low light photography that were reasonably, it's demos, it's one image, right? Or a couple images, but look good. Yeah.
But I don't think Nexus devices have historically been big sellers for them. So,
for Huawei or for
Google in general, it's certainly not
I don't know.
Yeah.
The thing is that they kind of had a bad round last time. Sorry, Nexus 6 owners. You may like him, but I think it was a little disappointing. I and a lot of other people broke for the iPhone 6 Plus instead, and was kind of hoping that the Nexus 6 was going to be the thing. And to me, it wasn't. This looks better, don't you think? A little more competitive.
Right.
And it's a Qualcomm Snapdragon 810. So it's not going to be it's a Cortex A57, right? It's not going to be as fast as probably the iPhone 6, let alone the 6S. Or Plus, whatever.
Right.
But it should be good 4K video. They have fast charging, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's nice. Apple doesn't have that.
Right.
And 3 gigs of RAM, so
yeah.
The guys that want more RAM, there you go.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
It's almost as much RAM as the GTX 970.
There you go. Well, it depends on how you look at the 970, right? Oh, don't know.
No.
No, don't talk about
Hey
that.
guys, about asynchronous compute hardware.
No. Oh, okay, we're going to infinite mode.
That's just for fun, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
But they
So-
had two phones that they talked about.
Right.
There's a 5X as well.
Right. So, Ben, do you want to talk about this guy?
Yeah, sure. The 5X is made by LG, who made the last Nexus 5. It's a little bit lower end in terms of specs, but it's also a little lower in terms of price. Snapdragon 808 with a 1080p display, which is still plenty dense for the screen size, which is like, I think 5.2 inches. It allegedly has the same camera as the 6P. So in terms of, all that low light camera performance that Google promises, you're not sacrificing that to go with the lower end Nexus. And still a fingerprint sensor on the back, which looks a lot like it does on the how'd you say that?
Huawei.
Something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Something like
Huawei. I think that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is and it's for relatively affordable, $379 for 16 gig version, $429 for the 32 gig.
Right.
And the three finishes, we have reported them as black, turquoise, and white.
Yeah, it's
Not
really,
carbon black, ice blue, and crystal white. Like, what's wrong with us? Did you nix that, Jeff? Is that text
No, I
in
don't.
there, or did
I don't think it ever got in there.
Ben? Did you not put? You only put.
No,
this
this is
in
Bruno
there?
wrote
work. This is Bruno's
Bruno
work.
wrote that. Oh, well, yeah. Bruno's not going to write crystal white. Okay. Yeah, we should have a staff conference about what you do about goofy color names. Because I think everyone says rose gold about the Apple stuff, right?
Yeah.
Seriously, they pulled that off?
That's what they say. And I didn't know you could rename pink.
If anybody else released that,
I didn't know that was an option. Like,
It's really not, though, in person. It's actually a lot more like a reddish gold, like the name would imply, because we saw them at the Apple Store. And
there you go.
I don't know.
They've
It's
renamed
certainly
pink.
not pink,
Okay.
in my
until they
opinion.
released
but-
a Hello Kitty edition.
So the other thing is this is the one more thing, right? The Pixel C,
Right.
which is the Surface from the Pixel, not Chrome, Android. What?
Yeah, that was my reaction. So the Pixel C is a tablet with a detachable. It's a convertible, whatever. We'll just call it that. So it's a like high-end tablet running Android, from the same people who made the Chromebook Pixel, which is like the high-end Chrome OS device. So it's powered by a NVIDIA Tegra X1 system on a chip. It's got a nice screen. The keyboard, it's all aluminum. The keyboard looks really well engineered. It's a nice device.
Yeah. It's how big is that tablet? That's display corner to corner. So
I don't think they told us.
around 12 inches, probably.
Yeah, something like that.
Like a iPad Pro or a Surface Pro. The interesting thing is that it is running Android, so it doesn't have that kind of desktop keyboardy, mousey kind, touchpaddy kind of thing, completely worked out. But they chose to go that route instead of Chrome OS, and I guess we'll kind of have to see if the apps and the OS and the software and the support all kind of evolve.
I really don't understand that decision because, my understanding of the Android tablet app ecosystem is that it's just a desert wasteland, but I could be wrong.
Well, one thing that you have to do to make things better is have a device out there that people can write their software for. that they can target credibly, and so you do this, and this is Google doing what Apple did, which is giving the blessing to the convertible tablets that Microsoft obviously has been kind of championing with the Surface for a while.
Well, they gave their blessing, but they also said, now these devices are terrible. You can't put them in your lap. You can't use them like a laptop. And when you want to write a document, well, now you're going to a laptop. And then they said, well, here's another one of these devices, right? So I loved their sales pitch.
That's weird. Did they say that in the presentation? They actually
that's how they opened the presentation for the Pixel C. Was convertible tablets are horrible. Here's a convertible tablet.
That reminds me of Johnny Ive talking about, people have always tried to. He had this like little voiceover, and he's in his accent, and they're doing this a couple years ago. People have always tried to do earbuds to fit any ear, but it's pretty much impossible. But that's precisely what we've tried to do. I was like, did somebody not listen to what he just said? Sometimes their sales pitches are weird because they're presenting the challenge, and then they're trying to say that they've addressed that challenge, but that they don't. It's not always clear why or how they have overcome that.
Yeah, I guess that's what he was going for, but it was just it was really disconnected. It was great. Well, and Steve Jobs said something a long time ago that if you're using a stylus, you're doing it wrong. And now there's the pencil,
Right.
So.
I do think he was talking about an iPhone that was like 4 inches or less size. In which case.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I think he might be right. If you're using, if you're not using a stylus and you're trying to create really good art on a large Surface digital device in this age, you're also doing it wrong. But there's context is important, right?
Right.
So anyway, but yeah, no, this is neat. I think it's an interesting device. I mean, it's fairly powerful with the Tegra X1 and a nice full color gamut SoC or display. I mean, and all of that. So it's just a question of who's going to buy this and what apps are we going to see for it and how does that all work? And
how much slower is the Tegra X1 in this tablet that's not plugged into the wall compared to...
Then what? Then the Shield that you got?
Yeah.
No one cares about that but you.
No, it's not the Shield.
It's
you told me that when you can plug into the wall, you can use more power. Well, now they can't use more power, right?
No. But like the Tegra X1 is... We know what it is, right? It's one of the more powerful Android-based or Android-targeted SoCs out there. It's not, though, as advanced a process as what Samsung is shipping or what Apple's shipping. And it's... is it? No, I don't think it is. It's not FinFET, right? But it's... I have to look that up. Isn't that crazy? I should know that off the top of my head. Anyway, but it's Cortex A57s and... Or did they ship the version with the Project Denver? Because there are 2 core options for it, right? Denver Core and the Cortex A57. They didn't say. Our store did not say which version of the CPU they're shipping. If it's Project Denver bin, then it could be one of the most powerful. It'd be substantially more powerful CPU wise than the console thing, right? Not power-wise, but IPC. Instructions per clock should be really nice. So, I don't know. Tegra X1 is still quite nice as these things go. So, yeah, it should be good. It's not going to be performance competitive with the iPad Pro or the Surface Pro. So I think you're making a relevant point if you're asking, is it comparable to those?
Right, and that's more or less what I was asking.
Okay. If they use Denver, then it's approximately the best thing they could have shipped given their choices. Right? Unless they went with Intel.
Yeah.
And Core M. But assuming that they were going to sort of do the Android ARM thing, that's the fastest chip out there that they could have bought. So there you go.
I want to hear about Marshmallow.
Yeah, Ben, tell us about marshmallows.
Marshmallows. Well, there are about 11 different things they wanted to do with Marshmallow, but I think about 4 of them are really interesting. The big thing to me is the context-sensitive stuff that they've tried to do with
right clicks.
Tap. No, not with right clicks.
Long tap.
No, with a press and hold on the home button, no special hardware, to get to a right click menu, more or less. To do things like, okay, so the demo was somebody got a Hangout message inviting to dinner, and you press and hold on the home button, and there are these actions that it tried to read the message and understand what it was about and provide options like creating a calendar entry or looking up the restaurant on, I don't know, one of those internet review sites that I never look at.
Yep.
You know, things along those lines that maybe real people do. So on tap looks like it could be really interesting. There's also some, lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Oh, we need to go to infinite mode.
Yeah, I guess so.
Ooh,
and the voice stuff is now open to, it's an open API. So on Marshmallow, Google Voice was kind of buried, and it was like Google only, and only our apps are going to use it. Now they've opened the voice APIs so that developers can use Google's voice recognition and search type stuff in their own apps to try to give, again, some context-sensitive, vague human language type stuff to apps. The demo there was with the NPR app. It asked, what do you want to do? You respond with a voice, and it allegedly does what you ask for. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just I have an obnoxious question.
Go ahead. No, I love questions.
So they changed this thing. They've got an Android sensor hub that basically collects like data on how the phone's moving and where it is and things like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it just says Apple did that like a couple of generations ago, right?
Right.
And then now notifications, you can touch it when it appears at the top of the screen and get quick access to a tool for taking action, like a quick interface to reply to text messages.
Yeah.
Stop me here. Is this sounding familiar?
Oh yeah, we're completely converging. Which, for a minute, I'm going to defend Google, which I hate doing, but I'm going to do it anyway, because when you converge features like that, the only people that win are the consumer. So,
right.
so
I'm happy to see this. Right.
But yeah, there are some UI things that are that do sound kind of iOS-y.
Stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. But the one thing that Google did seem to be doing with this sensor hub that Apple hasn't advertised that they're doing is the battery related changes. The idea is that the phone knows if it's being used, knows if it's in a pocket, knows if it's sitting on a table being left unattended, and the goal is to use less battery power at idle. Wake up the system less frequently, so that it's not wasting power getting all these notifications that you're not going to care about because it's in the next room.
Right. So if it's lying still, and you're not, it's like not in your pocket where you might be moving or whatever, but the phone has just been lying still for a long time, then it just wakes up less often to check what's going on.
Yeah, and allegedly that's going to let you use the battery when you actually want to use it, when the device is awake. So that would be nice.
Yeah, no,
sure.
It's a nice idea. So what else? Is anything else that we need to know about Marshmallow that they revealed?
They haven't actually revealed it, but I can almost guarantee you that it won't be on any other phone other than a Nexus for for the rest of the year.
Really, but it's coming out with the new phones. Are new phones like right away being released?
They're available.
Well, they're for pre-order.
Yeah,
right?
for pre-order.
And then you said in your report that the Marshmallow's coming out
next week.
We're rolling out next week to Nexus 5, 6, 7, 2013, 9, and Nexus Player.
Right.
So there will be a lot of Nexus devices that have it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see it, well, I shouldn't say that for sure. I'm guessing you're not going to see it on a Samsung or an LG device.
No, but HTC has already announced they're doing something soon.
They have.
Yeah. So it's probably coming to them. And I don't know. I guess, yeah. Maybe a miracle happens and Samsung gets really fast on updates. Let's stop talking about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
A comment from the comment section here. Chekula says, way too much use of the word allegedly here. I want to hear some more purportedly.
We'll work
that
on
word
it.
doesn't roll off my tongue very well.
Allegedly is like it's been alleged, like it's not something that you claim. It's something that someone claims against you. So it's not really the right word here. So more purportedly,
okay, all right,
allegedly, it would be better. Supposedly is a little weird.
Supposedly, is that what you said?
That's no. People get shot for that. No, dude. But are we here? Campman's taking notes here. He's gonna. There's going to be some editing that goes on here from here on out.
With a knife.
Yeah.
So if you've got, guys, if you're in the chat and you've got questions for the panel, get them to us now because we're coming near the end and we're going to answer questions and then we're not going to do anything else. So I think we got a few more questions, Luke, that we should probably address. And it's moving on from the new Google stuff to other things, right?
Yeah. But I have one last question about the Google myself, though. So Scott, I know you're on the iPhone. I know Jeff's on the iPhone. Ben, what are you on?
I have an iPhone 6s Plus pre-ordered, but it hasn't been sent to me yet. I was actually out of town and got up early and got on the website and pre-ordered, and no love.
So I'm going to be the only Android guy left here. Is that what I'm hearing?
You already are.
I already am. All right.
I got Android tablets. I use them. I don't know. iOS has been in a good place lately, so
yeah,
that's kind of where my new purchases have moved. But I don't think that'll always be the case forever.
So what's it like in the Apple ecosystem when you want to upgrade to, you have your old phone, but the new operating system is out? Is there ever a downside to upgrading to the new operating system?
Oh, yeah, because they support this. This is something you don't get in the Android world, by the way. They support the devices so long that you get to the point where you have to ask the question about, is this thing actually fast enough to run the new OS? Like that happened with iPhone 4s for a lot of people when iOS 8 came out. It got to be quite a bit slower, and it was not till 8.1 that they really kind of cleaned that up some. And the feature sets are not as good too. Like just because of less memory and less capability, you may have a case where I can't upgrade this device to the new OS, but I do not get features X, Y, and Z that are the flagships of the new OS because it can't support them. And so there's a little bit of that, but I think it's way better to, if you bought an iPad 2 years ago, you've been getting OS updates forever. It's a way better thing than, I bought a Samsung tablet around that time, and it hasn't been turned on for months because it just doesn't work. It's like gingerbread or something. And so it's there is a downside when they support them that long. It's just that, that's still better than not having the OS upgrades. I don't know. If are there other things I'm missing?
Not really.
Nah.
So that's my take.
I've just had a couple of goofy experiences upgrading on an older Android phone to the newer Android version, and sometimes it's not always a slick experience.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I did. When I did upgrade to OS 9, I did end up restoring an iCloud backup because something happened that every time I opened the text messaging app, it crashed.
Something happened.
Yeah. But restoring it, I got my messages back, so who knows? That was also around the same time that people were sending obnoxious messages that would just crash the springboard. So,
Yeah,
right.
Bad things do happen. It's not always perfect.
We have a trifecta of questions from the egg. The first one is, with greatly improved integrated graphics, do low-end discrete cards have any place in the market?
Well, I think the definition of a low-end discrete graphics card is going to change because there's kind of a baseline of performance where you kind of don't need to have a graphics card separate if you can't be better than integrated. There are still really low-end discrete graphics cards that sell in some places. I've heard stories about just perceptions in markets like China where people will not use the integrated graphics because it's not as good as discrete, even though what they're selling for discrete is lower spec. The issue that I think we're going to see going forward is just this. Integrated graphics is probably going to improve, is starting to improve to the point where some classes of hardware that we traditionally had, like the $79 or maybe even $99 or $129 graphics card, no longer is all that useful. And that really comes down to how much can you build onto a card for $99 or $79 versus what you get on from the integrated solution. And one of the big constraints is how much memory bandwidth do you get into a socket. And Intel is getting around that with the EDRAM cache it's putting into some of its Broadwell and Skylake integrated graphics solutions, where they expand the amount of bandwidth in a socket. And so they can kind of take some market share away from that. Another thing is that we've got new memories, stacked memories, and things like HBM and things like that potentially could mean a tremendous amount more bandwidth in a socket. As these things get better, then the case for discrete graphics cards that are really cheap gets weaker. There's still room though for I've built configs where you just get a bunch of back in the day PCI graphics cards and put multiple ones in so you can drive lots of monitors at once and things like that. There's the flexibility of being able to plug in multiple cards could still be useful for some people. But as a thing that most people do, discrete graphics cards are going to be gated as a market by the growth, the improvement over time of the low-end stuff. And there's no point in building a super cheap card if it's not better than an IGP.
Can I ask a real quick follow-up?
Yeah.
With, now that we're maybe looking at getting cards manufactured on a finer process, once that trickles into the low end, then that kind of resets that point, right?
Well, it depends on the combination of both, what it costs to make the GPU and what it costs to make the board and the memory and the whole solution, and what do you get out of that compared to what Intel ships. One of the problems that you have competing with Intel is they're always ahead of you in process tech. Another problem that you have is just that, what they're doing is taking advantage of memory that's already there in the system RAM. And if that bandwidth is sufficient for the GPU, and they've built enough GPU into the chip to take advantage, then there isn't a lot of room for you to do something with a discrete card and make a case for it.
And they are building a lot more GPU these days.
They are. The one thing that has happened, though, that has kind of limited integrated graphics really taking off is those solutions that are really attractive from Intel are the ones with the EDRAM. And Intel has priced those very high, and the Iris Pro chips are expensive. And they haven't released very many of them for the desktop, as you may have noticed. So we haven't seen sort of this general eating away of that. But I think in places like the laptop market, that's happened a little bit more, and all-in-one PCs and things like that. And it probably will continue. Honestly, I don't know that Intel cares a lot about that, just in the sense that they're so focused on integrated PCs and mobile. I don't think they're all that worried about that. I guess the graphics card guys maybe are a little bit worried about it because it cuts into their unit volumes. But honestly, I think they make their profit off of faster GPUs. So That's my thought. I think the Egg had some follow-ups too, didn't he?
He does, yeah. Second question. Are chip makers doing consumers and PC gaming a disservice by selling low-end chips, knowing full well that most every purchase will result in disappointment and aversion?
I think that's happened. You guys know like the AMD Brazos platform, or it's like the early Intel Atoms, especially that AMD Brazos, man. There was a long period there where AMD kind of made that its bread and butter. Rory Reid was CEO there, and he really liked that Brazos platform. And you could go out to Walmart, you go out to a lot of these big retailers, Best Buys and stuff, and there were laptops that were 14, 15-inch, classic looking like PC laptops that were shipping with this Brazos platform with really relatively slow CPU cores, relatively slow graphics. It was basically an Atom competitor. It was basically low power, but they were sticking them into full-size laptops and selling them super cheap, $450, $500. And as you recall, there was a trend where PC sales really started to stink and people bought iPads instead. I think that fed that trend. I mean, if you bought that laptop, you had a terrible experience compared to what you expected based on that sort of traditional category of PC laptop. I think people didn't know better, and I think it was something that you do if you're AMD because you need the money and you need the business. But it's not something that you should do if you're like an HP or somebody and you care about like repeat customers. Yet they did it. They bought those chips and shipped those things because the PC market was so much of a race to the bottom. It was always, what can we sell for the least amount of money so we can ship the most? But it wasn't very good for consumers at all. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Black Friday specials. People run up with bad machines.
Dude, yeah. I have had that. Did she? I've had people they're like, what should I buy? I'm like, you buy this right here. Here's the spec. Don't look at anything else. Buy this. And then they go off to the store and they come home with a Black Friday special and it's a turd. And you're like, no. And you're like, is this okay? I thought I got a deal. It was $150 off. I'm like, no, it's not okay. You ruined everything. There's a reason why you ask me as an expert opinion.
Yeah, my dad asked me, what should I buy for your mother for Christmas? And I gave him exactly what you're just talking about. You look for this and you look for this. And we went through Best Buy's ad and found, 2 or 3 machines. If they have any of these, buy them. If they don't have any of these, just skip it. And he brought home, it was like an E450. It was an AMD, one of those low-end 15-inch. Notebooks.
Brazos platform.
Is that what that was? Was that Brazos or was that the one?
Actually, maybe the one right after. Yeah, but it's the same thing.
Same idea. Yeah.
And it's I don't know, man. If you knew what you were getting, it wouldn't necessarily be a raw deal to buy one of those. But I think they sold a ton of those to people who didn't know any better.
In case our listeners are not in the know, if they give away more than 5 of them, they're not good products. TVs, laptops, doesn't matter. You don't want those things.
Yeah. So one more question from the Egg.
Yeah. Should there be some sort of standardized performance metrics listed on GPU packaging for better product disclosure, a la the table at the beginning of Tech Report's GPU articles?
AMD tried that one time. They tried that when they had Athlon and Intel had Pentium 4 and everybody looked at megahertz. Everybody looked at clock speed as the thing. They tried to come up with like an industry-wide standard that... You know what happens when you try to do that and you don't have Intel support? It doesn't work. So, should there be standardized packaging? Maybe. Will there be? No. Like, nobody's going to do that.
I mean, who's going to make that index? What's it going to be based on?
Well, Microsoft tried with Vista and Windows 7.
Yeah.
And that just...
the Windows Performance Index, what does that mean?
Yeah, it was just totally gaming the system, right? Because integrated graphics scored like 0.1 lower, the GMA 950 was just a little bit below the 8800 GT.
Yeah. And there's a history here, and it's a terrible history. And you think, honestly, if anybody's going to do it, it'd be somebody like Microsoft, right? The hard part is I think that what people trust or want to trust is the brand on the product they buy. And for PC enthusiasts, that might mean like an NVIDIA graphics card or an AMD Radeon. For most people, it means HP or Apple or Dell or whoever. And, honestly, I think that most of the big PC makers have not been very good custodians of their customers that way. Not good representatives for them. Like, we bought this, put it together into something we think you should buy. Here it is. Without doing things like the E350 switcheroo. And so I don't know. I think that the answer is the one that the market has been working out, which is every millennial in the world buys a MacBook. And that's what you get, right? Because Apple's like, no, screw you. Like, these going to be expensive. It's going to be really expensive, but it's going to be okay. And it turns out that's a better deal than like a succession of 3 E350 deals at Black Fridays,
Somebody in the chat, Alpha Cheese, suggested that Valve did something. And, when it comes to Steam boxes, they might need to, right?
Oh, man, don't even get me started.
Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. The Linux geeks are going to be like, yeah, rate their video drivers. Like,
gosh.
Just crush NVIDIA. Like Linus said, screw them. And, I don't know. It's really, really hard to come up with a single number to characterize performance. You get a single technical innovation where you squeeze more out of something and you have some dynamic behavior or something, and those numbers suddenly become meaningless. And frankly, you'll get dynamic behavior to game for those numbers once you build a metric. People will build products around them. 3D Mark was a big thing, and there was a time when, I don't know, you guys go back and read my review of the Radeon X1600 XT. I'm totally perplexed in that review. Like, why did they build this card? It doesn't make sense that they're charging this much for this card. It has all of the resources here, but not over here. And I found out later, they just put a ton of vertex shaders on there because it did really well in 3D Mark, and then they could sell it to Dell. Because Dell, bought based on 3D Mark number. So the architecture's changed in order to game for the numbers. And what you want is for consumers' interest to be represented in a more robust way. And I don't think numbers solve that. I don't think performance indexes have ever done a good job there.
Well, and drivers did it too, right? With Quake 3 and 3D Mark and people doing really crazy stuff in drivers that...
Sure. I mean, what you figure out what you're measuring. We're going to figure out how in hardware and software we can come up with the best number for that if it's important. And look, if it means that we're not going to put enough RAM in, but we can improve our score by getting a little bit faster CPU, that's what we're going to do. Is it what you would want in the life of this product? No, but that's what we're going to do. So I think that numbers create perverse incentives, and it's probably not going to work out.
Jeff, tell me about GeForce Now.
Maybe not now.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Do you have other questions from the chat?
I don't know. Get your questions in now.
Is there a big difference between the Skylake Core M3 versus M7? Or is it mainly to charge people more money who like the number 7? I think there's a performance difference there. There's a lot of dynamic clock speed behavior that you get with Core M. But I don't know. I guess I need to look into the SKUs more. Have you guys looked at that?
I mean, what are they? Are they like the Skylake Core? We're saying those are Core M's, right?
There's a Core. Okay, here's the deal. Intel has more brands than anyone. So they did
Right.
Core M in the Broadwell generation. They do Skylake, and they're like, Yeah, we're going to do Core M3, M5, M7. And so they have a bunch of different SKUs or products. And so, for instance, here we have the Core M3 6Y30 processor. 4 megs of cache, up to 2.2 gigahertz clock speed, base frequency of 900 megahertz, 2 cores, 4 threads. And this is the sort of standard Core M3. It's a 7 watt, well, it's a 4.5 watt TDP, and you can configure it up and down from there. They also have a Core M7, 2 cores, 4 threads. Base frequency is 1.2 gigahertz. Turbo frequency peak is 3.1. Same TDP of 4.5 watts. That's a lot of numbers. What I get out of that is there's a big difference in max turbo frequency, 2.2 gigahertz versus 3.1 gigahertz. How much residency you have in those higher turbo states with the M7 will depend a lot on the application and the cooling in the device. And so I think that's more true with Core M than it is with other Core products. And my expectation is you're not going to have a lot of like configurability in devices that use them. The OEMs are going to select one or the other for the most part. But assuming that they are both really like 4.5 watt using the power similarly, the M7 should be quite a bit faster with the higher peak clock. So I guess one question is whether, I think it goes back to how much you care. Like a 2.2 gigahertz Core M3 is pretty good for a lot of stuff. But it's not going to be as big as the difference between Core i3 on the desktop and Core i7 on the desktop, for instance. Because it's the same number of cores, the same number of threads, the same power constraints, all of that. So maybe a little different in the graphics realm, though.
Do you happen to know the TDP on the Core M3s and Core M7s?
These are both 4.5 watts.
4.5 watts. Okay.
So and the thing
fast
is,
for the Bay Trail lightweight guys.
yeah, these are they're not Bay Trail. They're real cores.
Okay.
But the deal is that they are mobile parts, and so they've got different sets of constraints. The thing is that TDP isn't really the thing. They use a thing called SDP sometimes to talk about the power use on these things, and then they're configurable. The TDP up configurable peak on a Core M3 here is 7 watts. TDP down 3.8 watts. So there's some range even within, like if you bought that part. The M7 is 3.5 to 7 watts. So similarly configurable, with a little bit lower minor or TDP down number. So yeah, I don't know. The difference in price is interesting. $281 for the M3, $393 for the M7. So the M3 is not a cheap option. So yeah, there's not as much difference as there is in an i3 versus i7 on the desktop app.
And that's just the price for the processor?
Yeah. That's recommended like customer tray price. Nobody pays that who makes like a zillion PCs, right?
Yeah.
It's just something that Intel puts out there as a starting point for negotiations.
That's significantly higher than Bay Trail, though.
Yeah, no, this is Core M. This is a real thing.
All right.
It's Skylake.
So we could talk about DirectX 12 with Fable Legends. We could talk about the GTX 950.
No, I think unless we have more reader questions, I think we're done.
Yeah, those are big chunks of stuff.
Jeff needs to sleep. It's there.
Jeff's like, make it end.
Well, it's like midnight where you are, man.
It's 11:42. It's close.
Oh. Man,
I've turned into
It's all right.
Falcon.
It's all right. I'm a millennial. I can handle it.
That's
Have you got a MacBook?
I do.
See? There you go. That's all. There we go.
Just put OS X El Capitan on it. It's really nice.
So you
It's
call it
pronounced
OS
10.
X and not OS 10?
Oh man, I did just mess that up, didn't I?
That's what I want to
funny.
call it, but yeah. You know, that's probably why Microsoft skipped 9 on Windows. They wanted to match the version number for OS 10.
Well, it's got 10.
Yeah.
They both have 10.
Well, if you don't say it OS X, or if you don't say it OS, or if you say it OS 10 right now, it's OS 10 version 10 dot. It used to be version 10.10 dot whatever. It was really awkward, but whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's 10.11 dot whatever. But
all right, guys.
Well,
I think we're running out of steam here.
Before we close down, I need to see Infinity Mode one last time.
One last time.
Woohoo!
That's terrifying.
How many Scots can you see at once?
We can do. I think we can do that again when we get if we get the right setup. I can make that happen with everybody's heads.
That'd be amazing.
Awesome.
Can't wait.
okay.
Wow. Thanks, everybody. Let's see if I should read us off here. Do you guys want to talk what are you working on first? Scott, what's in the works?
The Nano review eventually, I think, and then I have a couple build-related projects coming up. We're going to do some more of that. I'm going to build some systems and kind of just take people through what I'm doing. So I've got lots of parts sitting here, and it's filling up my office, and I'm looking forward to putting them together.
Great. How about you, Jeff?
I'm working on a system guide update right now, and then I have another fractal design case in my labs. It's the
Take a drink.
Maya Labs. It's a mini ITX deal. It's pretty neat. So I'm looking forward to reviewing that.
Okay. And you, Ben?
Nope.
We need to get him something to do.
Yeah, Zotac. Thing,
they haven't gotten him in the thing yet.
Yeah.
So
I haven't heard from anybody on that yet.
We got to give him another thing. Remind me tomorrow. I'll ping Zotac, and we'll if
okay.
that doesn't. But we need to get you something else too. So we'll
You're
try
welcome,
to make
Ben.
this happen.
It's all right. I mean, I assume you want content for the site, but I'm okay. I'm not personally offended if that's what anybody's.
Okay. No. We'll get you something to do.
Please, no more reviews.
He just sits idle in the corner if we don't give him something to do. It's tragic.
This brings us to the end of the episode. If you have questions for next time, email them to jeff@jcampman@techreport.com. That is Campman with a K. As always, we'll do our best to answer all the questions we can on the next episode. If you want more, be sure to check out techreport.com to get the latest scoop with our news and reviews. Until next time, I'm Luke, and thanks for listening.